Evening and a very warm welcome to this edition of The Big Debate. I'm your host, Iguma Gabriel. Glad that you're joining us for the show, even if we're starting a few minutes late. This is because of the events that have just concluded, that is the President addressing the nation on a number of issues. A lot of his speech was focused on the Ebola outbreak in the country, and the President stated that despite the numbers that have been given on different fora, only 24 people have been confirmed with the Ebola virus and only 5 have died. He has asked the public to dismiss all other reports that give varying figures. The President also took some time to speak about the parish development model and some of the developments there, assuring people that by the end of the financial year, 100 million shillings as promised will be received in every parish. The President also spoke about Emyoga and the fact that they continue to give the money to the groups in those circles that are in every constituency. The President took time to scoff at those who were laughing at him or did not judge him very well when he advised people to eat cassava instead of wheat products like bread. But also interestingly, many expected the President to speak about the East African crude oil pipeline and the comments from the European Union Parliament. And yet that did not feature in his speech at all. What is your assessment of the President's address that just ended? Well, our panelists will dig deep into that. Let's meet our panelists.
Our panel tonight. Godfrey Chawande Suri is a Ugandan politician, farmer, businessman, and national vice chairperson, Uganda region of the ruling party, the National Resistance Movement. He also sits on the Central Executive Committee, the supreme organ of the NRM. Godfrey Chawande has previously served as the State Minister for Tourism and Member of Parliament representing Mityana County North. Godfrey Chawande Suri is known for his strong ties to the party and has been at the forefront of advocating for jobs and wealth creation, especially among communities, with an aim of raising their income levels under the Chisoroka campaign. Captain Edward Francis Babu is a Ugandan politician, former Member of Parliament, former Cabinet Minister, and former member of the Central Executive Committee of the NRM-SEC. Captain Babu has a wealth of political experience, having been a member of the Constituent Assembly, Minister of State for Primary Education, State Minister for Energy, and State Minister for Housing. Babu is known for speaking his mind irrespective of political affiliation, his good oratory skills, and debating skills. He is also a former commercial pilot with in-depth knowledge of the aviation industry. Henry Muguzi is the founding national coordinator of Alliance for Campaign Finance Monitoring, a consortium of CSOs that banded together to foster transparency and accountability in financing of political and electoral processes in Uganda. He specializes in governance, accountability, project design, evaluation, and reviews. His 18-year career has seen him work with the New Vision Printing and Publishing Corporation, WBS Television, following which he turned to civil society activism. He holds a master's in public administration and management, a bachelor's degree in political science and public administration, and a myriad of postgraduate certificates in various disciplines. Ladies and gentlemen, our panel tonight.
Excellent. That's our panel for tonight. Mr. Muguzi, I think I need to start by correcting. Your institution is Alliance for Campaign Finance Monitoring, right?
Alliance for Finance Monitoring.
No, there's no campaign in it. Yes, Alliance for Finance Monitoring. Yes. But good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening, Gabriel, and thank you for having me.
Excellent. Captain Francis Babu, it's good to have you.
Thank you very much, and good evening, and thank you for having us on this show tonight, the big debate.
Yes. Well, viewers, apologies from the Honorable Subi Chawande. He's just sent us a message saying, unfortunately, he will not be able to join us for the show. But we're in the able hands of Mr. Muguzi and Captain Francis Babu. Gentlemen, you listened to the president, and would like to first get your, takeaways from the president's speech. I will begin with you, Captain Francis Babu.
It's a nice habit for a government to respond whenever there is an outbreak of some kind of disease in a country. And Ebola is a very frightening disease to begin with. As the first time we had it was in Congo, if you remember. Eventually it came here. We've got matters because of Ebola in the north. And when government responds and come out, it's very good. There's no problem at all. And giving us some sort of assurance that there is some sort of control from the government, the Minister of Health, and the quick response to any form of dangerous epidemic or pandemic or whatever disease that might come out. And therefore, to me, it was good that the president came up and told us, gave us figures, what is happening there, talked about fake figures. Not only that, also talked about being able to control. They can contain it. It cannot spread, unlike COVID, which is in the air. They gave us the technical detail on how you can get this disease. And then, of course, they talked about there's somebody who was near Kampala here, I think Kasangat area. When they took him to hospital, they found out it was not Ebola. It was a completely different disease. So these are very important issues. Of course, I would have wanted, personally, the president to be accompanied by scientists. For example, doctors and scientists. They had one program.
There was Dr. Cheng.
Yeah. No, Dr. Cheng is just a minister. I wanted the people in the field. I'll give you an example. Recently, they had a fantastic program on NBS. They had two professors. They had a lady, a doctor for pediatric treatment. They had a lady from WHO. Now, that is a kind of panel I would have wanted to listen to, not for me, mainly for the international people who come to this country and for those who are going to travel to other countries. Now, the reason I'm saying that, I would have wanted to know what these doctors, clinical doctors, professors who know about this. We lost 2 doctors in the north because of this. And at that time, nobody knew much about Ebola. People knew about AIDS, and they wondered what sort of AIDS this was at that time. Luckily for us, they've had a lot of this disease has occurred in different countries. There are different strains. There's a Congo strain. There is the one of Uganda. They had it in West Africa, in Liberia, and I think in Sierra Leone. So the most important thing here, in my sincere opinion, is that I'm grateful that there is government response, whichever form it has come in. Obviously, I'm saying the impact would have been greater had we had some of those experts, and they talk about Ebola at the professional level. The president was gracious. He was telling us what he got in the report, which is good. But as far as I'm concerned, that's it. The government has responded, and I'm happy. It is not something that we should be very, very worried about. We should be careful. We should be cautious. We should be careful about the areas where it has been found. And we should be alert. If somebody gets those kind of symptoms, they should be checked. I think that was good. Okay. It was a good response.
All right, Mr. Muguzi, especially on the topic of Ebola.
Absolutely, Gabriel. Every time we have received an outbreak of an epidemic, the President, Museveni, has been equally to the task. We saw his credentials at display during the COVID days. And so it was reassuring for him to come out and, inform the nation about the status of this disease. And Captain Francis Babu was alluding to earlier, Ebola is a very frightening disease. The assumption is that on mere contact of the virus, your fate would be sealed. But also, we've grown up in a country where almost everything, every matter, however small, is a matter that must be handled by the president. And therefore, we could not wait to hear from anybody else or take it from anybody else other than the president, because he's the one that handles everything. So it was quite reassuring, and of course, hearing him assuring us that things are under control. You know, the deaths, as earlier reported, it's just a mere 5. You know, and so there's nothing to fear. It's not airborne like COVID. So we don't expect that through, like we feared the COVID so much, you wouldn't catch it. You'll only catch it if you get in contact with the fluids of someone who has it, and that it is also treatable. We're also reminded that Uganda has a virus, except the virus we have is for Congo Ebola, not Sudan Ebola. So, but maybe they can work. But again, he assures us that things will.
You meant the vaccine?
There's a vaccine.
Yes, there's a vaccine. But the vaccine we have is for Congo.
Yes,
Ebola.
the Congo strain.
Congo strain, not the Sudanese strain. Yeah, but of course also the manner of his speaking, spoke very well to the ordinary person. I think the Mutuawansi, for some of us who are elite, I think he oversimplifies things, and makes. But yeah, that is manner and style of communication. And yes, so now we know. There's nothing to worry. Things is under control. Nothing to fear. He promises he will bring his Bushman tactics, Bush war things. I don't know whether they still apply today, but says they have worked. So we give him a benefit of the doubt, and he's the president. He has assured us. What else can we take? So we feel strong and assured that the disease is under control.
The interesting thing about this speech is that it comes at a time when the world is really watching Uganda. This is breaking out when, there's no other, outbreak in the rest of the world. Many people, had halted their trips. There are people who were planning to leave the country. And so you would expect that part of the audience the president would be speaking to would be the international audience. And you've just ended off on a point where you're saying that as he spoke, he oversimplified, like he was talking to Omuntu Wawansi, the local Ugandan, not let's say the elite Ugandan. Where does that leave confidence for those who are watching to find out if they can still visit Uganda, and whether the government of Uganda, is taking this issue seriously and will ensure that foreigners are safe?
I think you're right, Gabriel. I remember back in the day when we were struggling and actually investing to get into the international news. And of course, lately there've been no scarcity of Uganda in the international news. I think earlier on, if we get an opportunity, we speak about what happened in the European court. But also the epidemic, because Uganda is one of the destinations for tourists. I think Uganda is one of the only 3 countries that have gorillas. And I have established that most of the tourists that come here would want to come and have a glimpse of some of those gorillas. Yeah, but of course, when an outbreak like that happens, I think what the president should have done, and which he didn't do, I think, is to reassure whoever was listening that this is not the first outbreak of the kind. We have handled much bigger ones and we have contained them. And so it remains to be seen whether from the way he talked, man of explanation, there will be some level of confidence instilled in the international community. Of course, we need the tourists, we need the money. Uganda is at a time the economy is limping, we need the dollars. The shilling is not doing well at all. It tells you that there are too few dollars. So, if you check the rate at which it is trading by the end of today. So we need the tourists here, we need the income here, we need we need everything that we can lay our hands on to keep the economy running. And so hopefully, it's all hope and prayer that this will not scare away those that had already booked to come and visit Uganda. We have just, of course, closed the Nyege thing that also was another one. So we've been in the news for good and bad reasons.
Captain Francis Babu,
yes.
Do we, take seriously the fact that these speeches are available for the whole world to see, as long as the person has the correct connections, internet and what have you, they can watch these. And do we consider those audiences?
No, but what I saw, where he was talking to both.
Okay.
He was talking to both the elite and the ordinary people. He even put there a table giving the definition and how you contract this disease. He spoke at that level, and then he went to the lower level for the ordinary person to understand. I think yes. I'm sure the notice they will put out as government, the alert, they will give that information, and the average person can get that information. Even the Uganda Tourism Board will definitely put out that information. Obviously, when this kind of thing comes and goes in the newspaper, yeah, and you get Al Jazeera, as the president put it correctly, coming out with it. I keep telling Ugandans that UCC is playing with our media, but the international media picks this thing up very quickly. And therefore, one of the things the president should do is also to speak to the international media. Now, that is slightly different. Today he spoke to us, but he needs to get either himself or his team to speak to the international media. I'm talking about the likes of BBC, the likes of Al Jazeera, the likes of CNN. I don't think there's anything wrong there. So what we're trying to tell the president, yes, thank you very much, that was a good speech, but now let's speak to the people outside the country using those media we are talking about. Those are very important for our country and for our business.
All right.
Very, very important.
Well, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there are world leaders that referred to COVID-19 as a simple flu. They downplayed the seriousness of the disease. In part of the president's speech today, he seemed to downplay the seriousness of Ebola, and yet this is a disease, like both of you have said, that frightens many. Don't those contradictions cause a problem in your view?
No, I don't think that. I think what the president was saying, that the experience we now have, the experience we have gathered, the African CDC, the world CDC groups, the Ugandan scientists, we have now gathered information. We lost 2 of our doctors. So what we have now gathered, yeah, we can now treat this disease. We even have a vaccine. So he was saying, unless if you get in touch with somebody who's got a disease, right, or you sexually entangle yourself with one of them, eventually you can get this disease. So basically, I think he has done a good job. But the only thing I'm saying is you are right. The kind of delivery, should it go to the international community? Should it go to the elite? Should we go to the grandiosi, the big people? So I've got a feeling that the president should understand the two, that the example I gave you of the NBS, that these doctors, through Minister of Health, should gather this group, which is good at it, because we have a laboratory here, the national laboratory, where they check all those viruses. We have doctors in those viruses who have specialized. They can sit down and talk the language that everybody internationally can understand. I have no problem with that. But I think it is the president to advise the minister to do that. Yeah, I say that can be done. He didn't simplify it. He just said, now, the knowledge we have about the disease, we can now control it. We even have a vaccine for it. I think that was very important.
All right.
That was not simplifying. That was saying, look, we are now more experienced about Ebola, but it is a frightening disease. If you know how the symptoms come out, to an extent that blood comes out of eyes and nose and ears, everywhere you have a pore, the blood comes out. It frightens. I mean, but now we can control it. As far as saying, it has now been contained. So let's wait and see.
All right. Mr. Muguzi, yes, it's understandable to build confidence. Yes, you make, and the president keeps saying, uses Bush tactics. make the enemy look smaller than people imagine the enemy to be. But does that work in our favor, in your view?
I think the president, you see, when you are a commander, it's important that you don't show that you are frightened, because or else the people you're commanding will then run away. So I think the president is trying to tell the international community and all of us that, look, we've been here before, we have handled this, we know how to handle it. And therefore, if we try to assess its, the gravity of it, the gravity of the Sudanese, the Sudan strain, we don't see anything to get frightened about, and we have everything in our armor to keep it at bay and contain it and annihilate it. So I think it was important to demonstrate that this is not something we've not seen before. It's something within our power. We have everything we have. We can to contain it. Everything is under control. Don't be frightened, but be careful. Don't be careless. And I think to that extent, I think he did well. But we hope that the people at the receiving end of this information do get it the way we are saying it now.
Okay, the president did talk about a number of other things. So even as we put the topic of Ebola to rest and touch on the other things that the president spoke about, in the coming days, what would you, hope to see in relation to our handling of the outbreak?
I think you expect to see the medics going out there and everything doing what they can do within their power. He said he's going to connect to the national grid, that hospital in
Mubende,
and
which for me was a bit of
the only thing that keeps you makes you question whether sometimes we fail to learn something, to learn anything from what has happened, because I was working under the impression that having gone through the experiences of COVID, we learned that the disease has to be contained from wherever it is. And therefore, it's to our advantage to make sure that all the health facilities are as stocked and also as equipped as they can get to be. But to say that even when we have programs of free connection to the national grid, I think under the auspices of the rural electrification program, and you still have health centers that are not connected.
In Mubende, not too far from the citizen.
So I think that's a minus, and that's one thing that I think has come to characterize the term of office of this president, because you see, the ordinary Ugandan may not care so much about who sits in the State House, but they care about the services, the roads, the schools, the health centers, the women who support the president so much. We are told they need health centers because they are the ones that are affected the most when the services are not at their best. But that you still have health centers that are not connected, that don't have enough hospital beds. Where are we putting our money? Where our mouth is? I don't know. It's the time. If we are speaking about taking this country to middle income status, remember at one time there was a debate of whether or not we have attained that status. How can you even think about attaining that status when health centers are not connected to power? What are they using? Solar? So these are some of the things, I think, the loose ends that the president should consider, tightening in the remaining, I don't know how many years of his tenure of office, so that Ugandans get to feel that this man can demonstrate by word and deed that he means business, because you cannot tell us Ebola is under control when you cannot connect to the national grid. You see, you cannot jump over a small they call it kakurukuku in Uganda. It's a small anthill, and then you think you can move a mountain. I don't know. So I think these are some of the things that need to be worked upon in order to reassure us that actually we are ready and equipped and prepared to handle an epidemic of whatever magnitude.
All right. Captain Francis Babu, before you tell us what you'd hope to see in the coming days as we handle this outbreak of Ebola, on that issue of the particular health center that's handling, this outbreak in Mubende, The president mentioned that they will connect it to the national grid, which means it's not connected to the national grid, and yet there are many programs. And, you know, government has been saying we have electricity all over the country. But the president also mentioned that they will receive a borehole for running water, which means there's a problem of running water in the health center as well.
It's very unfortunate. We have a problem with management of government programs in the country. We also have a little bit of laxity in implementing government programs. Now, I have found out that the biggest problem government has, they've got very good policies, they've got a stack of policies. I'm sure they have a library, and every time you get a book out, it is very well written. We have fantastic people who write programs, but to implement them, we've had a little bit of a problem. Now you talk about rural electrification scheme. I'm sure in that area where this center is, there is some sort of grid. Yeah. The question would be, why is it not in the hospital? Number one. Number two, we have a Ministry of Environment and Water, and they've been giving people boreholes throughout the country. Really, would a Ministry of Water not give a hospital a borehole? Those are questions that somebody should answer. And I think the president was doing that because he was also surprised that people had not connected these things to that hospital. In fact, if I was the president, I would make people answer. And we should not be saying we will do this. We should be saying, why haven't you done it? I think the two organizations, the one for electricity and the other one for water, for goodness sake, all our health centers should have those two. You can do everything else. Start with those two, and then you can come to us. We are now fighting for the ordinary person to have clean water. How do you expect a sick person not to have water? Yeah. I mean, are you with me now? So really, let us not play, but let's not be nonchalant about water and electricity in a clinic. I mean, it's really a shame. And Mr. President, if you're hearing us, he should really get out the carrot and stick, and we'll see what happens. Because this is totally wrong. For the implementation in this system is lacking.
All right. In the coming days, how would you want us to handle?
Coming days, I'm confident that the Ministry of Health, with their team, they are going to handle the thing of Ebola effectively, and they are going to help us so that it does not spread even more. But they should also give us more facts of what is going on. We want our confidence. The president has given us some sort of confidence. Mm-hmm. Can they increase it by giving us figures? And they should put it out. They should stop blaming media. The Minister of Health should actually put it out. This should put it out every day like they did with COVID. Let us not wait for the media to jog us to put it out. It should be government. Every day or every other day, they should put it out so that people are looking at it. And I think time has come to realize we're in a modern age where media has become unbelievable. When you have things like TikTok, you have all sorts of things coming on media. I think the government should be very alert on media, and they should provide information as much as they can. Today was Information Day. That thing came up, that they should give information to the public, and especially when we have an epidemic like this one, and it would help us. The problem we are having, implementation and communication. Two things.
All right. Mr. Muguzi, well, the president decided to, as part of his address today, speak about the parish development model, Emyoga, and to remind us that he was right about cassava being a good substitute. That's one of the things that was a bit surprising for me at the beginning of the speech, because I had expected he was going to speak to us, but also send signals to the international community when I had PDM, Emyoga, and he asked for his package, I thought, okay, maybe the international community should stop watching at this point. What's your view of marrying, these topics, in such an important address that many people were waiting to watch?
I think the president remembers that one of his trademark purposes during the campaigns was the parish development model. I remember when he was swearing in, and he was reassuring us that come rain, come sun, this country shall migrate to middle-income status. That was some of the models he was, flagging to use. But of course, as it has come to transpire, we know now that the monies that were promised will not be. Of course, when
the president says it's to control inflation.
No, but you see, inflation has been talked about. But when we remember that not so long ago, something that I think they had attempted to keep under wraps, they were able to deposit the $65 million in reparation costs that were awarded to Congo as a result of our adventures there. That, of course, in one way or the other had to affect the resources available. Remember, we are running a cash budget. We spend what we have collected. So if you get what we have collected and you've deposited $65 million, in that line, then you cannot have anything left for PDM. And of course, I think he knows that not many Ugandans would understand this. But of course, it's a shame because quite a number of people had expected the monies to flow. The monies are late. Some of them we read from the newspapers that have been spent on workshops and trainings and so on. And so the ordinary person, and so the ordinary person at the parish is still waiting. And this is now what, 17 months into the term of office. So this is he had to say something about this, and I hope the people will have patience and keep waiting. The other thing is the Emyoga. Emyoga was at one time also touted as this magic wand that's going to transform people's livelihoods. And of course, when people received the money, we know some of them shared it amongst themselves. Some of them are still fighting until today. They think it was a gift from the president to share. And of course, some of the leaders having been trained, I'm speaking about those I interacted with in Kampala and Wakiso. They have now learned that that money has to be, is a revolving fund, which if you borrow, you have to return. And some of them are now fearing to use it. And so these two have not necessarily triggered the transformation that many people thought. So I think it was important that he talks about this. Because confusion was beginning to brew around within the citizenry on whether or not this was Uebianswa or something of the sort.
All right. Captain Francis Babu, the inclusion of parish development,
again, the president is doing a job which should have been done by the Minister of Finance. There is a bit of lack of communication. And when the people in the Ministry of Finance speak, they speak over our heads. They're talking about numbers, they're talking about central bank increasing, reducing interest rates, which is fantastic for the economy. They talk about macroeconomics. These are fantastic things to hear. They talk about debt ratios and so on. But let me tell you this. Let us be frank to all of us. We've just had something called COVID in the last 2 years. It affected our economy, whether you like it or not. It has affected our business. It has affected the income that goes into government. It has affected our import and export. It has affected the whole economy, the big picture. Now, the money that goes into government, somebody was talking about cash budget. The money that goes in government, it comes out of those taxes. As we talk right now, URA is pushing people out of business. People are leaving business. Because URA has come out with very stringent methods.
Because they are very tight targets to meet.
I know where you're going, but yes. The targets is not cast in stone. Let us talk like grown-ups. You can have a target, but then you can look at the people you are targeting. You're targeting people who don't have.
Right.
Yeah? So when the guy realizes he can't pay taxes, he closes the business. So what is happening? A lot of business has gone out, so there's lack of tax collection. What are we selling as a country? Also check that one. A bit of cobalt here and a bit of coffee here. Is this enough to sustain our economy? So these are the kind of things we are talking about. Now, once you've known you don't have that, and by the way, if you've been hearing the people in the Ministry of Finance talking, one of them said, actually, we are broke. Another one said, we don't have money. Oh, no, the country cannot be broke. You can be broke, but the country can never be broke. You've been hearing all these kind of messages. Basically, is this: do we have enough money in the kitty, in our government, to be able to finance our programs, which we wanted? Clearly, we don't have that kind of money. So once we have agreed we don't have that money, the little bit that we have, we can take that one. Out of 100 million, most people have got 7 to 14 million, and so on and so forth. That's okay, but explain why. I'm not saying that it's an imperative, but it's something we should explain to our people. Secondly, we have this Ukrainian war, which has also not only affected us, it has made the petroleum products so expensive, and the petroleum products in their economy is a multiplier effect on all the costs. That's why I've been told today the matoke is between 50 and 70,000 shillings a bunch. And the two pieces of matoke, they told me is what, 2,000? No, 1,000?
Depending on where you are buying it.
Yes.
Yes. What we used to buy for 3,000 now goes for about 8,000.
That's right. So what I'm trying to say is that can give you a picture. However, is the parish model good? Yes. If it can be implemented, again we go to my word, implementation.
Right.
If it can be implemented, it is fantastic. Is a myoga good? Yes. Can it be implemented? Number 3, is development finance, developing all these small groups, using different forms of, these are all microfinancing, by the way, you at different levels, as the president said. So what is important, and this is, I think, is my view, government has got very good programs. How are they being implemented? That is the question everybody should ask. Are they implementing them well? Now, when you hear that somebody has got the money, the village bank, you know, some people have got village bank. When you hear that the chairman of the village has broken the bank because he has borrowed, his wife has borrowed, his daughter has borrowed, so they take this money and the rest of the village does not borrow any money from that village bank. And you know that this money is rotational. So the other people don't get access to it. So with all sorts of things happening, the question is still, the programs are good, they can do a fantastic job, they can even change this country. The question is, how are they being implemented? If you can answer that question, and I think even the president can answer it, that's it. He's got it. But that is the only thing you have to do now. Make sure the program is implemented the way it's supposed to be. All those programs we're talking about are good. Nothing wrong with them, if they're actually implemented. But most of them have not been implemented well. People have got seeds and they have sold them. People have got seedlings, they have sold them. People are fighting over land. Some poor people, their land is being stolen. So we have a few things that we have to put right. And this is where we need to go back on the table and find out how do we get the ordinary person to agree. And let me take you to another level, which even spoils this. When we first started with village models of our leadership in the village, we elected everybody on that committee by lining up behind them. We didn't even vote. We had fantastic leadership. It was not multi-party, it was nothing. We went on the village and said, these are our villagers. Who is the best? And we chose our best. And those LCs did very well. They even had a complete roster, a complete write-up of everybody in the village. Even when you visited the village, they recorded you. And when it came to development, they told people the information that they required. Now, access to information has also become a problem. If you look at the parish model, the way they have said it about the Gombola chief and working with the local leadership, and then where the money is coming from, you'll find that there's a lot of conflict, and that conflict is going to kill the PDM. These are the problems we are facing. Otherwise, it's a very good program.
There's something I want to, Captain Francis Babov has talked about implementation. And the one thing that is running through my mind is the bigger question, the elephant in the room. If you are sprinting over a company where staff cannot deliver, if you are sprinting over a country where the people below you cannot deliver, what does that speak about your capacity as a person, as a manager, to manage? Is it not about time to start questioning the capability of the head of state? Because how do you continue? What explains why none of these things are working?
Don't you evaluate that capacity at the polling station, at the ballot every 5 years?
You have a rural electrification program. They should know that the first priority to connect to the national grid should be health centers. They're doing none of it. You have DEOs and inspectors at local government level. Theirs is to supervise schools. What they're doing is to ring and say, I'm coming on Friday. They come to pick up the monies. Rotten.
Be ready for my arrival.
You have roads. Road construction, which have become just a playground for mafias and the thieves, because a lot of syndicated corruption happens. But you have somebody seated on the top of the tree, managing it, sprinting it. What does this speak about his credentials? I think it's about time as citizens we started questioning some of these things, because time has to come when we say enough is enough. We entrusted you with the power. We renew your mandate every 5 years. We expect better. We cannot be moving in a vicious cycle of these kinds of excuses. I think we need to think twice as Ugandans and say, are we getting the best deal here?
Okay, but Captain Francis Babu also said these programs are good. In fact, at a certain point, he used the word fantastic.
The issue is implementation. The programs are fantastic. The issue is implementation. The impunity. Why? What is it that makes these fellows, fail to deliver and do the wrong things? You've just spoken about, the chairpersons breaking the village bank, and nothing happens. The impunity that happens. Shouldn't we be pointing to a certain office and saying, look, it should be a responsibility to ensure that things are put right. This has been going on for the longest time. As citizens, we deserve better. I think the time has come for us to start, thinking about these things as citizens of Uganda.
Captain Francis Babu, can we divorce those things?
Yeah, we've just been talking about Ebola. The implementation is the same as Ebola. There's a sickness, a very big epidemic of not being able to implement government programs, good government programs. It's making our people suffer. His Excellency the President he's talking about, he has got people he has given his powers to implement these programs. The President is the executive arm of the President. All the power is vested in him. Then he takes his power and he gives it to certain people to implement. The question you would ask the President, why are your people not doing the job they're supposed to be doing? And this is where the problem is. Otherwise, those programs, and you know what is hurting me? We come out with this fantastic program. Other countries copy them from us, and they do them very well. The devolution in one of the countries in this place is decentralization. We did it here. People came here to study decentralization. They have implemented the decentralization in their country, and it is working. All right?
I was in that country, Captain Francis Babu, and I took pictures of primary schools.
Yes.
And the people I was with were like, but why are you gazing? Why are you? But I'm like, no, this is unbelievable. Deep in the village, this is the type of infrastructure. These are the types of buildings of primary school, government-aided primary schools. And then you compare with yours, Like Captain Francis Bobby is saying, we had decentralization. They just copied it and called it just devolution. It is doing wonders there. Why is it not doing wonders here?
What I'm trying to say, like I've told you, we've got fantastic programs. Other countries next to our country here are copying them, and they are implementing them beautifully. Why aren't we implementing them? Why are we going in a vicious circle? Is it time? I don't know. Maybe
No, please go ahead.
I think we need an inspiration of some sort. I don't know whether we should sit down and talk about this, but there's a lot of Ugandans who can actually do a good job. The problem is we seem to have those ones who are in the wrong place at the wrong time.
All right. I'd like us to move to what the president did not cover. But before we do that, since you brought up the issue of implementation, in the speech, the president talked about people complaining about implementation of some of these projects by NADS, for example. And he said people were saying they were bringing seedlings that were not good and things like that. And, well, the NADS thing stayed hanging there. So what's going to happen to NADS and its role in these issues? But also, Operation Wealth Creation and its role in these issues. And very quickly, what was connected there is, but there are people who had already planted seedlings, and we need to get these seedlings from them. But these are the same people whose seedlings came from previously, and we had a problem. Are we really trying to solve the issues? Even when we diagnose and come up with where the problem is, do we move to solve it?
You remember the former president of Liberia, Johnson Sirleaf. She said that Africa is not poor. It is poor because it is poorly governed. How on earth? You see, the president is a consumer of all manner of intelligence reports. So he receives all these. He actually knows who has slept on the job. He knows who is playing tricks here and there, and he does nothing. He keeps them around, recycles them, moves them from here to there. At the end of the day, it's us, the citizens, who are at the receiving end of the poor services. I think the time has to come for Ugandans to say, look, we think we deserve better. And I don't know who the people around him, what they tell him. But if I was him, because we manage enterprises, we manage organizations where we are, you simply cannot pretend over a staff that is unproductive, because your body will sack you. Your contract will not be renewed. But we have been kind enough and renewed this man's contract every 5 years. We deserve better. We want to see action. We want to see an end to this impunity. We want to see heads rolling. The people that have stepped on the job, what explains why you are choosing destinations of where to place boreholes, and the health center actually should be the priority number one. You haven't done that.
Landmark.
And there is nobody to bring you to task. There's nobody to even question. Who do they report to? And what mechanism is there? What kind of functionality do these institutions have? So these are questions I think we need to ask as citizens, and we have every justification, because we're the taxpayers. We are the people at the receiving end of what Captain Francis Babu called business as closing, because we've been milked to the bone marrow paying these taxes.
Captain Francis Babu, because we're not coming back to this topic, we're going to go to something else after the break. Your view on, can we actually become efficient and solve these problems, because we're managing to identify the problem?
No, I want to, we have a lot of credentialism in this country. I've got a degree, I've got a PhD, I've got a master's. You see people bragging on a grandiose level. The question is, do these people have the capacity and ability to do very simple things and actually get them to their end? Do they understand what they're doing? Do these people, this so-called elite, do they understand that by making a parish model fail, you are failing posterity? By making a yoga fail, you are killing our youth. By making wealth creation, you are killing a family. Do they have this in their mind? Do people reason this way? Or they are out there just to show off in four-wheel drives and talking to each other and killing each other with words? Instead, I call them pastors of doom. Because these people really are killing the projects that could make this country great. Who are these people? Why can't they see a family's little house where they have a father, a mother, and children, that these things they are doing are affecting this group? And take these houses I'm talking about, these homes, with their mother, father, and their children throughout this country, and see that these programs you are talking about is actually their program. And you are coming in your three-piece suit and you are talking? Really, we have a problem. I am sorry, but Ugandans, we are guilty of killing our own country. Don't put it on anybody. All of you down the chain, all the way to the village, you are not supporting our people to get out of that level so that they can enjoy this country. This is a very nice country. We are not poor. We are not. We are a very rich country. We are very rich agriculture. We are endowed. We've got rain. We've got everything. The people are good. Ugandans are good generally. What they need is to be helped to get out of these ditches we are in. All right. So I'm saying, and I'm not going to point my fingers anywhere. The people involved in these programs, we are saying you should be tried. You are killing this country. The president has said, go and do this one, you don't do it. So, as far as I'm concerned, we've got to wake up and say, why are you killing your own country? Why are you killing yourself? Because by doing so, you kill your neighbors, you kill your village where you came from, you put very big round fences around your house as if you're in Ruzira, because you are keeping those out. So time has come. And I'm sorry, I'm sitting on this television and I'm telling them, time has come for us to have a mindset change.
And we also want to see consequences.
All right. We need to take a break at this point. When we return, we continue the conversation, really focusing on the things that we expected the president to speak about that he did not touch on. Please stay tuned. The big debate continues after these messages.
This is Seetv. Don't blink.
We spend all the time trying to live other people's life, and along the way we lose who we are by copying what other people are doing in their relationship.
You see, from the last time I met your sister, I've not spent a day or a minute without thinking about her.
It's a good surprise on a Monday. This is nice.
So you and him are
we're just friends. Wow. Come on.
just friends.
You either tell me where you're from or you go back to where you've been. Thinking it would work out for us, but yet to find out that's not who we are after experiencing a great disappointment.
She's in love with some other man, so classy, a gentleman, not poor dogs like you.
These are the mistakes girls do.
Now showing on Seetv. Don't blink.
Seetv is now on StarTimes. You can now catch all your favorite programs, our daily comprehensive news bulletins, and so much more on StarTimes channel number 248. Stay tuned for a world of endless possibilities. Seetv. Don't blink.
This is Seetv. Don't blink.
Today we are analyzing the president's speech that just ended just about an hour ago. In studio with Captain Francis Babu, a veteran politician, and Mr. Henry Muguzi, the Executive Director for Alliance for Finance Monitoring. In the first segment of the show, we focused on what the president spoke about, and that is the Ebola outbreak and government's intervention to curb, the spread. The president gave the official numbers: 24 confirmed cases, 5 dead. But the fact that it's just 3 districts where they found these cases. Also spoke about parish development model and the issue of Emyoga. And the 2 gentlemen left off on the emphasizing that we need to implement government programs better, and heads should roll where programs are not implemented to the level that is expected. Well, I'd like us to, in the time that's left, talk about some of the things that you expected in the speech that were not there. There was a lot of conversation around the East African crude oil pipeline and expectations that the president would speak about that. In fact, yesterday the president, took some time to address, the European Parliament and the MPs there as being young and not having the capacity, to instruct him or to advise him. Let me start with you, Mr. Muguzi.
Thank you, Gabriel. You see, when I speak about things like now the oil pipeline, I have to make one disclaimer that for me, my country comes first. So that should be known. Number 2, that facts are facts. So I read the concerns of the European Union Parliament. They were able to put their facts together, they've done their research. There are things they are pointing out. All right, and I think responding to them required some level of research. But when I heard the president speaking yesterday, he took the discussion below the table, speaking about these young girls. You saw how he rubbished things. The European Union is raising issues about things we may have overlooked in terms of compensating the people that have been affected, displaced by the pipeline. For some of us who interact with ordinary people, for a person who lives in a rain-fed economy, a person that is aged 40, but the biggest amount of money he has ever touched is maybe 100,000. When you tell this person, I'm giving you 5 million, 10 million, it sounds a lot. And they will take it happily. So on the surface, they're satisfied with the compensation. But in reality, that compensation is taking them nowhere. Because when you compute the effect of the displacement, the costs they're going to have to undertake in order to reestablish themselves, it's too little. So we had a region where people had been compensated and they were happy, but they were compensated with the peanuts they did not know. Now I called my colleague before coming here. They said yes, the people here are kind of rechecking whether or not the compensations were small. The European Union is saying that was not adequate. The human rights abuses, the excesses of the overzealous security operatives that seem to be taking the power in their hands and doing all these arbitrary arrests. A country where everybody is happy and willing to, the security operatives arrest even when they don't have a case. And then they keep people, detained without a fair trial for months. These are things they're pointing out. They're pointing out issues such as relocating that pipeline. It's true, we should know that there is no way anybody can ever have a quality omelette without breaking eggs. And therefore, the pipeline, by its nature and in and of itself, was supposed to have some, consequences of sorts. People had to be displaced. But when they raise certain issues, I think it's important that the government of the day listens and probes. Maybe there is a point. But to simply rubbish them aside and, you had the comments of the Speaker of Parliament, the Deputy Speaker, who was calling it imperialism and so on. Then I asked myself a question. These people are able to procure very expensive vehicles. They have lead cars. They have military men looking at, escorts, military escorts. They have guns. When will they ever start investing in research? That when the Speaker of Parliament is doing rebutting some of these statements, he's using research, not simply dismissing these as imperialistic things, because there are points in there that need to be looked at. The president should have a team. Why don't they have higher researchers? He worked with a group of scientists during COVID, yes, but on matters like these, look at the issues, the merits and demerits, because some of the issues that are being raised in there are legitimate. They are founded. They require a response that is informed by research. And I think when you read, for example, it's from what they were raising that I discovered that when the pipeline is crossing rivers, there's something they call open something, that I had not looked at. And they were saying that, you see, the way it is crafted and when you look at how it is configured, it's going to be bound to have what are they called, leaks. So when you ask them, so in the event
and the
that
issue
they happen,
of oil spills and oil leaks
the spills, when they
yeah.
happen, the only thing they tell you is that, oh no, we have done everything possible to ensure it doesn't spill. But these are inevitable. So they're saying, can you look at it again? And maybe also explore an alternative route so that the rivers, the water bodies through which it's going to pass are not, disrupted. So I think it's important that we turn to research. I think it's important we listen. I think it's important the president and the parliament started considering spending money on researchers, not research assistants, researchers that can go down there and dig out the information and feed you with the information that they speak from an informed point of view, so that they can, return fire in an informed manner.
All right, Captain Francis Babu.
I don't agree. I actually know that the environmental impact assessment was done by a very well-respected group from Europe, and there is a report on that environmental impact assessment. Number two, there are people that are giving false information of what is going on. For example, they have talked about that pipeline displacing people on land. The question is, which land are we talking about? Is it government land? Is it Milo land? Is it somebody being removed from land, which way he was supposed to have been all this time? The people who have been displaced have been found on land where they were not even supposed to be, some of them. But they've been given some sort of compensation. Some of them have not got all their money, I agree, but that one should be looked into. What has annoyed us is that what you're calling research is actually not research. It's like a group of detectives who went to see what this other international group had done. Let me tell you, Total would not have started on this pipeline without the environmental impact assessment. They wouldn't have. nobody would have taken that contract. Now, if there's areas which people are talking about, I want you to know that there are more pipelines in Europe than there are in Africa. And secondly, the companies that are doing these pipelines are virtually the same. Now, when somebody comes to Africa and say, because we are building a pipeline from here, we are not doing it correctly, what are they talking about? So, I would like to say, to take this report by the European with a pinch of salt. And I've got another reason for taking it with a pinch of salt. The pinch of salt is in business. If we get our oil out, we get into the level of business where we are selling this oil, and therefore our country will get a certain level of the economic growth. There is a unfortunate Western game they play. When countries are beginning to get to a certain level, they delay. They delay them. They delay them because of the world economic order. Now, I am not happy with this. The European Union, the way they did it was wrong. First of all, the European Union did not come here to talk to our ministry and find out if they already have this information. My brother says here they have not done research. Uganda, the Minister of Energy, has all this research done, even before they started taking that line. In fact, one of the senior officers of the Uganda Petroleum Authority was telling us to an extent that this pipeline in some area is passing underground and is covered on top, and the animals can continue to stay on top in certain areas where you have these animals. This other one, the pipeline you're talking about, going through water, it doesn't go through water, it's going above the water. And so that we wondered where it was going through the water and whether this pipeline will just leak for the sake of leaking. Now, these are the kind of things that I'm sorry to say I'm not happy with the European Union report, because they have not compared it to the Ugandan report, because Uganda has a report. And I think what is annoying the president and a lot of leaders is that the Europeans did not do it correctly. They did it as a political gimmick, and they're using human rights. Now, we are tired of telling us about human rights after the European Union went to Libya. Let them tell us what they did in Libya. Is that human rights? Let them tell us what they did in Iraq. Is that human rights? I think time has come. Africans should stand on their feet. I am not saying if there's something wrong, we should not talk about it. But where they have done an impact assessment and there is a report on the table, are you saying that the company that the environmental impact assessment is bad and it was a European company? It was not even Ugandan. So, as far as I'm concerned, I am sorry. With their economic, they send economic people to come here and play on our mind. I am sorry, my brother. I do not accept. You said you want a disclosure. What did you call it when you started?
Disclaimer.
My disclaimer, I'm a Ugandan. Ugandan is first. That pipeline belongs to the Ugandan people, not to President Museveni. If you people are fighting with him on human rights, go ahead. But for the pipeline, Ugandans are not happy. Are you with me? Ugandans are not happy. When the right things have been done, we've got a good group. In fact, this thing should have done in 2015, but they have been doing all those impact assessments. They have been doing all sorts of things. Companies have been changing. We've been fighting over taxes. We've now got to the level where we are going to take it to, and you're starting to give. By the way, ours is the smallest bit. The biggest bit is in Tanzania. And they have already done a lot of work on it. We are not, I don't think Uganda is trying to break any rules. My friends in European Union, they should come here and go to the office or ask our office to give them how far they have gone and compare. You don't send here research assistants, you actually call them research assistants. They come here, they walk around villages and ask people questions and write a report. That's not research. We also know who did it. So as far as I'm concerned, please, President Museveni out, everybody, this pipeline is Uganda pipeline, is our lifeline.
All right, gentlemen,
Correct.
I like that you both start by saying Uganda first, and we need, to have more Ugandans who, put the country first. But okay, there's something you'd like to say. Say it, and then just read something very quickly.
I've been thinking, Total, the biggest investor into the pipeline, 62% is French. ECOP is a British company. And it's the European Parliament that is telling them that Total, look, you have not done enough vigilance. You need to do more. There are certain things you are overlooking. Maybe we instead of dismissing their concerns, maybe it's time we relook at these things and say, okay, can we go through this again and see and say and establish whether we have checked every single note and ensured that everything is going to go according to plan. They are saying that it is inevitable that through the lifetime of the pipeline, oil spills shall occur. And then we are assured if they occur, how are we going to handle this? So I think before brushing that aside, and again, Uganda first, all of us know we need Uganda. We know that Europeans don't necessarily like us. We know this. And of course, especially so when there is a thing that is likely to give us economic independence. You see, when you do in my own language, they call it a kuwaguka. So you don't want something to kuwaguka and then get out of your hands. But maybe there's something, instead of brushing it aside, maybe we need to relook at some of those things and say, is there a point there?
So, excuse me,
yes.
Before he finishes, the oil in the world, from the Middle East, from West Africa, from Venezuela, goes into boats. How many boats have you had leaking going to Europe? So many. Have you ever stopped?
There's one that leaked in America, BP. Remember the BP
No,
leak?
they haven't.
No, they've leaked
and
it.
the complexity of, cleaning an oil spill, and the struggles that we see, the superpowers going through to clean an oil spill. Imagine one here.
Where? There is not a pipeline. I'm talking about a ship. I'm talking about a ship. What I'm trying to give you, please wake up what I'm saying. I'm saying the ship's
pipeline, the possibility of a spill
very
is much
small.
lower.
Very small.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah, very small.
Let me just
compared
read.
to the ships. How many ships have they stopped from taking oil?
No ship has been stopped.
Then?
Except those that have been hijacked by pirates.
No, those ones have never spilled. The ones who have been hijacked by hijack, they only gave us money. And those guys who got the money, I think they are great. They are spending the money in Africa. Let's go on anyway.
So I found this comment quite interesting. And especially considering who the comment is from. This is from the ambassador and permanent representative of Uganda at the United Nations, Ambassador Adonia Ayebare. And he says, this is my 2 cents on the ongoing debate on ECOP and the EU Parliament resolution. The point on sovereignty has been made. Since the company is seeking funding from foreign sources, the messaging should focus on addressing concerns of the funders and other serious players.
Yes. They are not the only funders.
We are not using our money. Those we seek the money from are saying there are certain conditions and they look at again.
Who?
If we send them away, how are we going to fund this?
We go somewhere else. They're not the only funders in the world. Please, stop putting us down so low. We might not be that rich, but we've got other friends who have got money. But the best pipeline developers in the world are Russians. So since there's this thing going, maybe we should go to Russia now.
But they're the ones who are selling us the Mi-11 helicopters that are crashing. So
no. Those they actually came from Ukraine.
Not Russia.
Not come from Russia.
Okay.
But what of the issues that they actually raise? Should we?
No. We are not saying they should not threaten us by going to the European Parliament. Cannot run Uganda. That's another point. European Parliament running our country from Brussels is wrong. If there is a concern, we have got an ambassador in Brussels. We've got high commissioners all of in the European Commonwealth. They can I send them that letter, say, would like to get some information on this. That comes to our ministry and our government replies. But you don't go public intimidating us.
Captain Francis Babu.
Yes.
You know that members of parliament will go ahead and say whatever they say on the floor of parliament.
Huh?
We've criticized them for doing that, and it's what you're doing in what you've just said. We have done the exact same thing
with what?
By also responding the very same way.
Responding to who?
To them.
No, we're responding, telling them we're a sovereign country. And we also have our own parliament. European Parliament is for Europe. That's why they have called Total. They prefer to call Total to tell them not to work with us. Which is what they're trying to do.
Are they really saying don't work with Uganda?
Yes.
Are they saying Uganda should address certain issues?
The point I wanted to make was that instead of saying you are not going to intimidate us, can we pull out our own research and say, okay,
and show that the facts are contrary?
This is the research we have.
We have it.
These are the facts. So that instead of saying, oh, don't intimidate us, don't do this,
we do it. We go to public. We go to the public and give them our research.
No, we say we did an environmental impact assessment here. These are our findings.
I am sorry.
This is how
I am sorry. I will not be brainwashed by those white men. They went to Berlin, divided Africa. They are not going to divide Uganda again or divide Africa again.
All right.
They either work with us or they don't work with us.
Some people have linked.
And I think I better speak like what the man said. Was it, who was the president in America? Was it Bush? Either you're with us or you're not with us.
That was Bush Jr.
Yes.
You're either with us or with the enemy.
Yes.
So, some people have linked the visit of Russia's foreign minister to some of these issues now coming up. Do you think that's the problem?
I don't know what is in the European mind, but when the president is speaking like that, he has more intelligence than you and me and him have. I am sure he has got better intelligence than we have, and he knows what they are up to. But let me tell you, the economic hitmen from Europe are all over Africa. Correct. And their job is to play with our economy.
Correct.
And as far as I'm concerned, I am not happy with the way Europe is treating us. We are not at the era of the Berlin Conference. This is 2022. We want our country to come up. This oil in a few years will not be good. They are all going electric cars. They are going to the moon. They have killed the environment with the acid from their countries. They are talking of Africa has not killed anybody. Our environment has not been killed by us. They're the ones killing our environment.
Yeah. And the percentage of the contribution from this oil pipeline is negligible in relation to
what they have done.
Pollution that
they are at about 3. They want us to come down to 1.5 on climatic change. They said they would give us money to work on our environment. They don't want to give
carbon
it
credits
to us.
and what have you. Yes.
Okay, if they don't want to give us oil, let them allow us, like they have allowed Colombia, to grow coffee and buy it at a better price so that they don't grow cocaine. We know what is going on. We know what they are doing. We are tired of economic hitmen. We are tired of destabilizing Africa. Let us build our pipeline. I don't say they shouldn't do an environmental impact assessment. No. We should do it so that we do it well. Right? If we have done it well, then they should come and find out. Now, our people, compensating them is extremely important. That one I have no problem with. How do we do it? But then, don't agree on compensating them using our valuers, and then tomorrow morning some European comes and says, no. What the valuer gave you was not good enough. Why doesn't he go and value his pipeline in Europe, which brings gas from Russia?
But Captain Francis Babu, in relation to the valuation that is done and the actual payment that's made to the person, our laws require that it has got to be, the value has got to be commensurate, to the
commensurate to European Union?
No. Commensurate to the discomfort that you are being caused. Because they are moving you, for example, from your ancestral land.
No, No, these are people who have gone on land which doesn't belong to them. If you like, they are people on land, and they are being compensated of the stuff they have on that land, not on the land.
But you know that it's, it's our laws.
Doesn't belong to them. You mean they're squatters? Or
yes. But our, you know,
Kibanja holders.
The ones they're talking about.
Yes, but Captain Francis
the one
Babu,
who have got Kibanja, they had to buy their land.
Captain Francis Babu, it's our laws that protect the people. Yes. Bona fide occupants of land.
No, bona fide is different from the people who have gone on land, where they are not bona fide. The people who have got land, like for example, there are some areas where they will go onto Milo land. They will have to pay for that Milo land. But if you're a Kibanja holder, they'll pay for your stuff that is on that land, the house, whatever it is. Now, the valuation is done by experts in this country. They are not mediocres. The question is, and this is where I would like to agree with you, when they have done that valuation, probably they are not paid, because some of our people in government do not implement what has been agreed upon. The other point is, if the government valuer is undervaluing, which is the argument some people are using, who is going to give us a better value? European Union? Who is going to give us it?
So if the Europeans come and say, look, there's a problem there, because they're saying that what people are being compensated for is not enough. And you know, we live in a country where when a deal like that, when an assignment like that comes, value land for which, along which the pipeline is going to pass, it's like you've given people now, what is it called, an opportunity to get rich.
Oh, yes.
So I would not be surprised.
The problem with many of these things is
there
are people who will go there and buy. Those ones will get paid first. And the ones who are there,
I would not be surprised
if the compensation comes after a very long time.
We are now talking about corruption.
Yes, correct.
Now, if we are talking about corruption, then let's discuss corruption. If we are discussing the pipeline and the compensation and the valuation, then we talk about those. Then if you say, in doing so, there are people who are corrupt, I agree with you. You see, unlike other people, for me, I know where we are talking. What has happened on this northern bypass here? You see this northern bypass? There are people who were compensated. They got their money, they moved away, they have gone back. And they are now asking for more money. This northern bypass here. So let us now say, okay, in compensating our people, there is a play of corruption.
Correct.
And that one must be corrected.
Correct.
If that is there, then I have no argument. I cannot argue because I know our people. But the question would be, have the government valuers done the valuation? Is it there?
They have.
And what sort of land people are we talking about? Are we talking about Milo land? Are we talking about squatters? Are we talking about bona fide tenants, like you've said? Are we talking about kibanja holders? And who gave them these kibanjas, and so on and so forth? Now, then there is the point of the forest, because people have said this pipeline will destroy the forest. How big is the pipeline to destroy the forest? You see, these are things that we should be talking about. So, as far as I'm concerned, yes, there are people who have taken advantage of this pipeline. These are everywhere. There are people who went and bought land in those areas. They knew it was coming. Therefore, those fall into organized crime, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. They are crooks.
They're syndicated corruption.
Syndicated corruption. So we can talk about those. But talking about our pipeline, I want the government of Uganda, and I'm going to say it openly, let the Ministry of Energy help us and get somebody to explain to us about environmental impact assessment and talk about compensation. And then talk about the quality of the contractors who are building the pipeline. How is this pipeline? Can they talk about the leakages also, the ones you're talking about? To us, not necessarily to European Union, but to bring it, because some people have brought it out. You can do it nicely by bringing experts who have done all these things to tell us. Now, this other thing of the pipeline passing underground, nobody even knew about it. I knew it because I tried to investigate. Now, if we go on, because somebody is financing us, and we now have to be subservient and go on our knees because some Frenchman or the two ladies who first asked the president of France that they should stop this pipeline because they are environmentalists, because of climate change.
But you know that they also do that in their own country.
Which country?
Yes, they do.
You know how many pipelines in Europe?
No, not in relation to pipelines. You know, people
on a number of things.
people who are passionate about certain fields will
The
go
Greens.
and say, even environmentalists.
Even animal
rights
even,
experts. Precisely.
Excuse me.
Let us, on the floor of the European Parliament.
We have two things going in the world. The population is increasing. The environmental pressure and the populations are on a headlock. Whether you like it or you don't like it. People are going to require more places to stay. You are going to require more modern equipment. And therefore the environment and the people is going to have a total clash.
All right.
Whether you like it or not. Now, let's go to our pipeline. Europe, that Europe you're talking about, do you know how many pipelines they have?
No, Captain Francis Babu, we agree with you.
We have several.
We agree with
pipelines
you.
Of gas.
And they will continue to do so because of various reasons, you know, and part of which is really their survival because of their winter and what have you. And they've got to have those. Now, gentlemen, because of time,
yes,
we actually have to go to our parting shots. I will start with you, Mr. Muguzi.
So for me,
how would you want to see this thing play out in the next couple of months? Because any delay is bad for, you know, our great resource that's in the ground.
I have a feeling that one of the intentions of the Europeans is to delay this project. I have no doubt in my mind that Uganda needs this because we cannot wait any longer to have this oil out of the ground. But I also know in there are concerns we have to look at, issues to do with the human rights abuses. Those have to be considered. Issues to do with the corruption that has, bedeviled the compensation schemes, where people are given money that is not adequate to relocate them safely and sustainably to other places. These are there. I think we can look at those. And also, we're looking at with a pinch of salt, look at those issues instead of brushing them aside. Maybe there is something, maybe there isn't. But maybe we can look again and say, okay, just to make sure, because sometimes, when I was being trained, when you did something, they tell you check it again, and after you've checked it again you check it again, just to be sure. So I think it doesn't hurt for us as a country to look at some of those things and say, is there water in some of these things? But what I don't like is for them to tell us what to do, and I also don't like that they would want us to go through with one of the longest pipelines in the world, or what? And since when did Uganda become home, or Africa become home to one of the longest man-made anything anyway? So I know that there are those sentiments as well, but I think we need to be steadfast.
I'm sure they would take kindly if we also took such a stance on a project that was happening in their land. Well,
thank you very much. There's one point I wanted to make. Some of those people, they have built houses for them. They've also built schools.
Yes.
And people are not talking about this. Some of the people who've been moved away from some of those areas, they've got houses, they've got schools.
I've seen the houses, but they have no land to till from.
Oh, it doesn't matter. That's something different. Now, you can argue about that afterwards. Let's talk about one thing at a time. Number two, nobody should stop the work. The work should continue. Number three, if there are people who have turned into mafias and they are cheating these people on their land, they should do something about it. Another point that I want to make, which is very, very clear, we must get government to come out on a good public relations streak so that the people of this country can understand what is going on, so that it is not one-sided. And as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to say that they've just built a pipeline like that one from Chad to Cameroon. Yeah, there's a pipeline from Chad, inside Chad, all the way to Cameroon, coming out at the port. That pipeline was built by France. And as far as I'm concerned, they are experts in building this pipeline. They should tell us. And somebody could do a small research on that one. which can be. Yes, I'm finishing. I would like to thank you very much, but the pipeline should not stop.
All right. We can go on, and truth be told, some of those companies do a different job elsewhere and a different job here, because we've had them do big projects here, and those projects have had many defects. We're actually dealing with some right now. But one of the things I've really liked on the show today is our agreement that for us, Uganda comes first. We'd like to thank you for being a part of the big debate tonight. We'll return next week with another discussion. But from me and the fine gentlemen that we had on the show tonight, we say good night, God bless you.